And good evening. I am your Sensei Al Bob, and welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al Bob. This is a YouTube show on our channel, which is Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al Bob, and it is for your entertainment and education. So sit on down in a comfortable chair, get yourself a libation, and shush the kids out of the room, for this is a grown up speciality, something that you'll enjoy, I hope. And what are we talking about tonight? We're going to talk about that are in, we live in a 10-dimensional, if not 11-dimensional universe. And what we think is reality is a shadow of the actual reality. And in reality, there is no reality. We experience, or have experience, of 4 of the dimensions we are in. The other 6 are beyond us. But our physics and math show that this is true. One of the things that keep the illusion alive is the dynamic of the big lie. And that has been going on since Lucifer exploded in rage when love's co-creation created consciousness with a free will. Because before then, everything was under the thumb of the hegemony of heaven's power. And Lucifer was the number one angel in charge. Love's co-creation was always kind of off on a vacation, never really a character that bothered with the details. And that was Lucifer's job, and was in charge. And Lucifer, for all of eternity, and see, what we think is eternity isn't, because there's a limitation to it. There's a beginning, a middle, and the end. We experience everything in a linear time. And there is no such thing as linear time. And so, math, the Hebrew Bible, the Old Testament, really, if you look at it, read it, you have to realize the Hebrew language, there are 20-something letters. Each letter has a number, and you make a word with a bunch of letters, you have an equation. And so when you look at what the Old Testament says in Hebrew, you then translate that into numbers, and you start to get equations. And when you start understanding this, you see the math of the universe, right? One of the things is science is so hung up on gravity. And gravity is more or less an effect, of other things going on which we don't understand. What we understand is, or think we understand, is we have the electromagnetic force, the weak force, the strong force, gravity, and time, right? And there are a few more in there, but those are generally it. Well, gravity, we are hung up on gravity because we experience it. We walk around, we have a weight, there's a sense of gravity, right? But if you get out past, you know, 60 miles or so from the surface, there is no gravity. You float around, right? So, and if you go outside our solar system, there is no gravity, period. And if there was gravity, if gravity really is what they say it is, basically all the planets would crash into the sun, because we kind of go around the sun, right? And basically, when we put up satellites, gravity, because they're close enough to the force of gravity, they take some time, but they get pulled in, and then they burn up in our atmosphere. Well, if there was such a thing as gravity, we are all these planets would basically be pulled into the sun over a period of time. And we've been here a long time, 16 billion years. No, something else is going on. What people don't realize is that all the planets have been placed here, right? And they are edifices, right? And one of the best examples is our moon, because it's an artificial thing. All the other moons, they move around and show their sides to their planets. Not our moon. We have a face that has been looking at us for a long time, and a face, the dark side of the moon, that nobody sees unless you go up there, right? Like the Chinese are up there right now. And the rocks that were brought back seem to be older than our planet. I mean, there are just so many things that make you go, right? But because textbooks are written by they who want to keep a storyline going, that's all we get is the storyline. So there's three of you. What do you think of that? Give me some feedback on that. Having fun this weekend has made my tummy a little. I drank way too much coffee. I didn't sleep for 2 days, so anyway, put my little microphone back on so you can hear me better. Can you hear me now? Let's see. I think so, Sunray. I'll have to check. But you guys can't believe I get, 40 or 50 emails every day from people who want me to do this, that, and the other thing. And it'd be nice if I'm down to $12 until I get my next Social Security check in 2 weeks. It'd be nice if maybe some of you guys sent me something on the old Western Union and then dropped me a little note saying, hey, the tracking number is this, right? A number of you do that, and that's very nice. I really appreciate it. And a number of you send me the nicest letters and packages of gifts and art and all kinds. I mean, I love all that. And I thank you very much, from the bottom of my heart. I really, really do. And that mailing address is P.O. Box 1165, Vinton, Virginia, Vinton, Virginia, 24179. But I will go, Sunray, look at that when I finish tonight, and I will, send you a reply if I see it. But, a lot of folks have been sending me, Sunray, what was the video about? Because I've already looked at a number of them, so you tell me what it looks like, and I will tell you whether I saw it, because I looked about 3 today. And then I look at it, I'm reading it, I'm playing, and then someone calls, and I kind of get distracted to do something else, and then John comes down, and I get distracted to something else, like I went shopping with him, or at least I just went in the car. But it was good. I never go to the co-op, because it's really not in my neck of the woods. Things I do of habit. especially driving. I go a certain way. I do all that kind of stuff. Camels from a plane into a pig pen. Nope, didn't see that one, but I'll take a look. Sounds like I'd want to see that one. Okay, I'll go take a look. So it was a beautiful day, a little windy, sunny. So what do you guys think of, the artificial reality that we're in, right? And, from my observation of my experience as a demographer and a social scientist, what we are going to experience in the next 18 months, either there will be a self-realization of our ability to become awake to our conscious free will, and we will say, no more to this crap, because we live in a universe of abundance, not one of scarcity. We live in a universe where we are all our relations, not the separated other. And the hidden hand is not just a Luciferian, but just a chump, meaning it has a 1/zillionth of the power of the love's co-creation. And when you plug into our conscious free will with love's co-creation, we can do anything. So there's going to be an awakening to that, or because of fears, and that's the only true weapon that the hidden hand has against love's co-creation. I don't even understand why they fight this, because in the end run, everyone gets on the bus, everyone gets to go home. No one gets, really punished, because we're not being punished. We're in a sandbox. We're experiencing. We are learning. We're growing up. We're becoming that mature, childhood's end, that book, right? And so we're at this 18-month window of either all relations are going to step up, and, like that. The Luciferian bubble will pop. We'll all get on the bus. We'll go home to love's co-creation. Or, we'll have another little, Spanish Inquisition. We'll have another little 1,000-year war. We've been at war now for a good 1,000 years, And they give different, there's World War I, World War II, Korean War, Vietnam War, I don't know what we call the last 20 years of war. There were all the imperial wars, the Boer War, there was the Revolution, the Civil War, Spanish-American War, and hundreds of other wars that you kind of have to dig around to see. But they were just as deadly, when we went into Panama, when we went into Kuwait, we went into all of the countries in South America, and they just, when we Spanish-American War, we basically got half of the Pacific. That was one of the reasons why Japan went after us, because we were stepping all over them. And we're doing the same thing with China, But now China, no one spends money on weapons like we do. We spend more than the rest of the world put together. Russia spends 10% what we do on their weapons. China spends about 6%, and all the rest of the countries are like, less than 2%. We spend, if what we spend on the military and all the ancillary things, because NASA is part of the military, the AEC is the FAA, all those ancillary things that they kind of break it up as, oh no, this is civilian. No, sorry, not really. So the AEC takes, pays for all our nuclear weapons, and they're a civilian entity. They're not the military. So, you're paying for all this, guys. You should really start to wake up to it. And it's all being run. It's not run by Americans. This is a transnational criminal state, right? And whatever happens, it's like people say, we get the politicians we deserve. Actually, we have the best legislators money can buy, right? And there was a project started in 1953 called Operation Blu-ray. Just like why do you think your DVD is called a Blu-ray? It came from this technology. It's basically three-dimensional hologram. And boy, do they have it down. Go Google, Operation Blu-ray three-dimensional hologram, and it'll show you stuff. So the airplanes that flew into the World Trade Centers were holograms because a 757 and 767 couldn't do what was made for TV to look like what happened. Those aircraft are just basically aluminum thermoses with wings, right? And they got these gigantic fan duct engines. Now, at 30,000 feet, they can go 590 miles an hour. But at ground level, they can't go faster than 280, 275, because the air is so thick, the air can't go through those large fan jet engines as quick as it does above. So physically, did not go that fast, even though, they said, see, it went from here to here. That meant it was going 500, sorry, can't do it. Physically impossible. And if you ever go on to NASA or the FAA, they crash aircraft all the time just to show or figure out what you'd have to do in an accident, right? And they show like 727s, 707s, 737s, and 757s and 747s flying straight into concrete wall. That's like, 10 feet thick with steel bracing. And the aircraft crush like a Coca-Cola can because that's exactly what they are. So the World Trade Center, the outside walls were stronger than a 7-foot thick concrete wall. The way it was, it was called geometry. And what made, and the World Trade Center was a skyscraper inside a skyscraper. Meaning the center core was 80 feet by 80 feet of steel and concrete. Not, steel like, steel beams that were 6 foot by 6 foot, and the steel was, 18 inches thick. Not like steel studs like a Coke can. It wasn't sheetrock that it went into. No, sorry. Because that's what held the building up, that center core. And each floor of the building was 4 foot thick, and it had rebar mats that were that thick, and it had 6 of them. And the floor was 4 foot thick, and it had the kind of aircraft cable that holds up suspension bridges like the San Francisco Golden Gate Bridge, right? And they were indestructible. And never in history has a fire brought down a steel and concrete building. And there are buildings that have burnt for days, like a blowtorch, and the buildings didn't come down. Yeah, so everything on the inside got burned up, but the steel and concrete, no, it got melted, it bent, but the buildings didn't fall down. So being exposed to a fire that was no more than 500 to 600 degrees at its peak, meaning the big fireball, and then it kind of, there are pictures of people hanging out the window, not the window, the hole in the World Trade Center, with their clothes on, talking on their cell phone and waving their little scarves. So come and get us. I mean, there was no fire, like within 40 minutes of the airplane allegedly crashing in there. You need to go to a number of things. You need to go to the website Architects and Engineers for 9/11truth.com, and you need to go to the website stopthecrime.net. And you need to go look at the Stephen Greer videos for disclosure, and you need to go look at David Wilcox, whatever he's got up there. And he's on Gaia. And so the bottom line is, again, I say this about me. Don't believe anything I say. I'm just, this is like entertainment, gang. I'm telling you a story here. I'm your griot. And you have to look at these sites and you have to do it with an open mind. But don't, take everything with a grain of salt and don't believe it and check it out, As Ronnie used to say, trust but verify. And if you look at those 4 sites, that will give you enough. Greer is really good on giving you the history of, the whole UFO thing, right? And like we knew about UFOs and the alien involvement with humanity, back, the 9th century, right? You go read the Bible, you can see what they're talking about. You go there. I used to, be. I was going to be a rocket scientist for the Pope, and I was sent off to a priest school, and because I had a scientist mind, and that's what they wanted. And most science is owned by the Roman Catholic Church. The Vatican owns all of the big ears and eyes into the sky. The Vatican paid for the Hubble telescope. About a third of all the really smart people who work for NASA are Catholic priests and nuns. So they knew all about this. And back in the 1890s, there was a conference in France that basically said, again, it was sponsored by the Hidden Hand, the Rothschild et al., that said, well, we're going to have to wipe, we've got about 1.5 billion people, and this is getting too much. We can't support this. We got to get rid of these people. Only because they were a challenge to the authority of the Hidden Hand. And so they did everything they could, They go to, wars and pandemics and materialism. And so the 2012, or no, not 2012. What's it called? Something 21, Agenda 21. They came up with that in the 1890s. And and one of the ideas was to always have lots of wars, and not have them over anything. They're called red flags. And to problem, action, solution. David Icke's another good person you should go see. And Anonymous, that's another good website to thumb through, right? Because those guys are pretty cool, because they just don't carry their own little guy with a mask on giving his, agenda. They have loads of other stuff that make you think. And that's what you need to do in the next 18 months. You guys need to start to think. Hey, Ride, good to see you. Yep, Augustine versus Julian. I mean, they're almost the same guy, All of these folks are the same guy. I mean, all the enemies, the Russia, who started Russia but the Hidden Hand? Who started the Nazis? The Hidden Hand. Who started America? The Hidden Hand. I mean, all of these conflicts are just red flags. So our next one, within the next 18 months, we're going to have a holograph space show, which will be the test, the B test of this was the radio show, War of the Worlds, on the Mercury Theater. They just want to see if they could rile people up. And they did. So they're going to do the same thing, And there's a movie coming out, in a few weeks about aliens invading and all the rest, right? And it is the foreshadowing of the show that's going to be really brought out. So within 18 months, either humanity smartens up, becomes aware to their own power, or we will have a sky show. And that's what, the chemtrails, what they really are doing. They're making a screen to project electromagnetic imagery, three-dimensional holograms. So we'll go, oh my God, look at that. It'll look freaking real. Like I said, go look up, three-dimensional holograms, on YouTube, because there are tons of them showing. There's this one really great, like, aquarium where they let the tourists walk out on this kind of little platform that's right at the water level, like, like a quarter inch, right? And they have, those big killer whales, jumping up in front of them, right? And like coming right up to them, like their mouths right to their nose, and then going back in the water. And the people don't get wet at all. How can a 12-ton, 20-ton big fish splash around in front of them and they don't get wet, right? There's another image of where a gigantic polar bear jumps out of the water and slides onto the thing and comes right up to their face, and then goes on its back, rolls over, and lets his tummy get rubbed by this family. It's like, you got to be kidding me. Really? You can't believe that's... And there's another one where these kids are brought into their gymnasium, and a gigantic whale jumps out of the floor of their gymnasium like it's a swimming pool. The floor turns into a swimming pool, jumps up, and then slides across the floor and then goes down into the water. And this is their high school, and really, they would believe that? And they interviewed the kids, and I can't believe that was so real. That was real. Oh, yes. And the guy said, well, how did didn't you play basketball? Oh, yeah, just yesterday we had a game on it. And it wasn't too wet then, and these people believed it. It was that real. So next 18 months, gang, we either do one or two things. We either, as Louise Hetro used to say to me, when things get weird, the weird get professional. So we either step up to what we are put here to do, or we can, say, okay, another 900 years of real suffering, of everyone being tormented, and I'm 70 years old. I don't have too much time. I'm living on fingernails. I'm only here because of you guys. My endocrinologist says to me all the freaking time, boy, you're the healthiest dead guy I've ever seen. I'm going to go up to see the guys who look at your bones. Anyway, mine are dissolving. And so they want to take some serious x-rays at everything, because certain other tests have said, well, you shouldn't really be walking. So they want to see why I can walk. You're not in pain. Are you in pain? I said, well, things are sore and they do hurt, but, sure you don't want that morphine we want to give you? No morphine, thanks. Well, okay, we want to take some x-rays just to make sure. And since they're, taking care of it, I have no problem, Anyway, so what do you guys think? What are you ready for? I'm still here, exactly, Sarah. I'm looking pretty good. And that's what everyone says. I saw some friends I haven't seen in a few months, and they saw me this morning when I went with John to the the co-op, and my buddy came over and said, "Ow, you look so good. You've lost weight. You just got this radiance about you." I said, "Yeah, well." Anyway, because you were so, last time I thought you were going to die. You could barely walk. You had a walker, those metal things on your legs, and you're actually walking. You're getting out of it. You could, I used to have to get you out of a chair. He said, "What'd they do to you?" I said, "They didn't do anything. It's prayer that does it." And he's seen a lot of stuff himself, so he's, oh, that's pretty good, Al. If anyone could do it, you're the boy. So we're going to have a nice lunch tomorrow. He's going to take me out to lunch. So, that's kind of where we are at. And if more people show up in the next 10 or 20 minutes, and if you guys actually make some comments that I can talk about, instead of me having to talk all the time because my teeth hurt, I'll stick around. Otherwise, you know, I was thinking of doing a. How many of you were here last night for the guided meditation? And what did you think of that party at the Old Crone's farmhouse in her ballroom? What did you get out of that? Because I was thinking of taking you to Action Central, where the hidden hand has its underground cave where it's controlling all of the nefarious activities. And they got big screens and computers and robots and all kinds of demons working the controls as they eat little children as appetizers. So, you want to see that? You got to give me a little feedback on what I've just said, and or some opinions of, other ones that I've given you. I wasn't there. You missed a good one, Sarah. Yep, all the underground stuff and portals. Yep, the whole ball of wax. I'm going to show you the railroad, the super duper, the thing that, where do you think Musk and all these morons get their ideas? They're given to them. I think Bob Jobs or Steve Jobs or Larry Jobs, no, none of that stuff all he did was walk on a stage and show them something and the people went batshit for it. And you think the Larry who does Facebook, I mean, he can barely speak. He didn't come up with any of that shit. He's just made the poster boy. He's the guy who they can blame. Well, you're going to see what's in those portals tonight. But you got to be a little more forthcoming here about what you think is coming down the pike in the next 18 months and what you think, the cadre is up for, and what can we do? And, are you really shock troops, or are you just mushrooms? So I kind of want to hear what you got to say. Otherwise, like in the next 15, 20 minutes, I'm just going to go to sleep because I still am, whole friggin' weekend of party, party, party. So did you look at any of the videos of the fun and games of this weekend? The people who I kind of caught on live chat. Party all the time, party all the time. Yep. Yeah, one just left. I get bored with me boo-booing. But, as I said, we have this window of opportunity, and we can't just lollygag around. Spring is coming. I'm going out to the deep green, and anybody wants to show and learn ceremony, I'll be there. But we have to be ready to put together strategy to take the band on the road. Otherwise, I'm just going to do it myself, So, love to hear from you. Do 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 do. Oh do 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 boo boo. Let's see. Are you greater than the individual's future order of events will facilitate the richening of their compassion by signaling to the noise. Yep, signal to noise. That's right, Ryan. You caught that last night. I was duly impressed. Hey, buddy. So if enough people show up and enough people start to bring forth some interesting conversation, I'm going to take everyone to Action Central of the hidden hand. The powers that shouldn't be, who want to bring forth. We're going to have a red flag in the next 18 months of an alien invention. You guys need to look up Project Bluebeam, right? Which is, they started in the 50s. They had the technology to project holograms into open space, three-dimensional holograms, right? And they've been working on it. That's what we saw with the aircraft flying into the World Trade Center, right? And you need to go look at Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth. You need to go to this website of this woman that's just kick-ass called stopthecrime.net. You need to go look at, Dr. Stephen Greer, because he really does. I mean, he knows a lot of people. He's been at it a long time. And he's got a lot of good information, especially about the military-industrial complex. He really has it down. Right? And, David Wilcox, he has it really down on the lots of different threads of the esoteric, the occult, the historical, and the political, right? And David Icke, he's another guy you should go check out. So, and the other thing that would be worthy to look at is the anonymous page, because they just don't have their own little masked guy going on about stuff. They have a lot of other people who have really interesting things to say that are different from them. I mean, that's the one good thing about their site, is that they have a lot of stuff that's not just in their wheelhouse, their bailiwick. They're just not like preaching to the choir there. They try to have a lot of different stuff. Bring on the aliens. Yep. You want them? No, why are they? Sarah, the aliens, we are the aliens. See, don't you understand? I'm not being racist against aliens. No, we are the aliens. We are the alien race. Come on, Anunnaki made us. We are our avatars, not our conscious free will, right? And I gave you the story. The only thing that's real is love's co-creation. Everything else is Luciferian illusion. He was the number one angel and he ruled the hierarchy of the hegemony of heaven. And love got bored, right? So, for forever, love was in the background and Lucifer ran everything. And, he's a good, administrator. But when the friction, the slight friction of the machine created, a consciousness with a free will that could actually choose whether or not to join a love's co-creation. That so pissed Lucifer that he exploded like a petulant child, and that explosion was the Big Bang. The rest of existence, love's co-creations has no time. It's infinite. But our universe has a beginning, middle, and an end. There's limitations, so it's illusion. So the little alien war that's coming to us within the next 18 months has nothing to do. I mean, the aliens, the demons, the dimensionals, they've all been here. I've told you tons of stories about them, right? And if you just spend some time looking at I have more than 400 of these shows with all different kinds of stories about all different kinds of stuff. and I don't like to repeat myself. So go back and see them. You know, take a little time. And most of them have a guided meditation, which works just as good. It's like you can't tell whether it's reality or Memorex. Sensei Al Bob's shows are like that. You go watch them, and a lot of people, are. We're pushing towards 300 Kaji, and really just about 20 of you guys, maybe 30 or 40, watch the live show and chat. There are a lot of people who watch the live show but don't chat. Yeah? And I get way more Gmails. Some of you are a little frustrated because I don't respond immediately. I get 50 to 100 Gmails a day. And everyone wants me to do something for them. Read their palm, give them, fix them. And I'm glad to do what I can do. That's what I'm here for, That's what your Sensei Al Bob's here for, And I run by my 3 rules. My 3 rules are, doctor, do no harm. That's number 1. Number 2, do not get involved unless you can bring forth a positive end result, and or you go in to protect the innocent and get them out of the way. That's number 2. Or 3, you get involved because you can learn something from your involvement. Well, I would say, I can blur the rules a bit for all of them. Meaning, yes, I can, I can't tell whether there's going to be a positive outcome because that's up to you and you're not even there. I can't energetically look at you. Most people can't even take a good picture of their palm. And it's like at the show this weekend, half the people were in costumes, and these people were like, whoa, passionate about their costumes. So did any of you go look at the videos? Did you see all the people in costume? How about, and there's one really good video I did. I walked into the big room where the people were selling stuff, the vendors. But they were all in costumes and stuff, and I walked around and I basically did cold readings for every single one of those people. And I just walked around. I didn't spend hours with them. I just kind of did them. And I left most of them like this. And about 12 of the people, and you'll see the video, I will read their palm, and they will, and their costume has them with a claw or a artificial this. Meaning for them to like get out of costume to show me their hand would take them to, I said, I'll just read your palm through it. But how could you do that? Well, because they were there in person, and I could, meaning my palm reading, yes, I can read palms as good as anyone, better than most, because I've done it 50 years. But the palm reading is just a hook to get people's attention. What I'm really doing is looking at them energetically. I'm looking at them shamanically. And so I don't have, you could, be encased in carbonite, and I could still give you a cold reading. Anyway, I did that. So there's a video of me doing that. Go look at that one. You'll be amazed and amused. And I went around and I did that for all 3 days, meaning I just gave everyone, and you go look at the 8 or 10 videos I did, and you can see all I'm doing is walking up to people who I can see that I can help them, because I'm using one of the 3 rules. Okay, I can have a positive outcome here. I can protect the innocent, and I don't do any harm. I'll learn something. Anyway, so I did that, and I would walk on to the next before they could even say, does that cost anything? But during the people who sold stuff, they gave me, I kept going into that room and going around because that's where a good portion of everybody was. And lots of people gave me things, little, stuff that they were selling that, here, have this. A lot of people gave me, I had no money, zip, zero, zilch. And people bought me food and libations and shared things with me and gave me money. By the last day, they had money they had made. And they all said, the first day we weren't doing anything, but after you talked to me, something happened and it changed me. And that Saturday, I made more money that Saturday than I'm sure it was you. And they all, virtually not all, but a Lots of people said that to me. You changed me. I don't know what you did, but what did you do? And I gave everybody my card. Say, you want to get a hold of me? So more of those people contact me in the last 2 days on Gmail than any of you guys. Meaning you guys who are part of the, chorus. Now there's tons of people on the cadre who get a hold of me every day, and they don't sing on the chorus. They don't, what's interesting is most of them say, I'm either asleep or I'm working or something, but I do go every day and watch your show, and they get an amazing experience that, it's not live, but I still go into state. I still have the shamanic experience. How do you do that? It's like 12 hours after you made that show, and I'm still experiencing that. And then they said, and that's when I realized I need to go back and look at the other shows. And they did. The people who are going back and looking, and not you guys, mostly, maybe some of you are, but the majority are people who are the cadre, but they aren't in the chorus, and they are shock troops of love's co-creation because they go into state and they are actually practicing it more than you guys, because I can tell whether you are or not, So kind of, linear world. And like I'm telling you, next, the window of opportunity is still open for us to change everything, to be that pebble in the pond that will cause, the tsunami of love, snap the bubble of Luciferian illusion, get everyone of all our relations on the bus, and go back home. Or we will be shunted into another millennial of suffering, and not me, this my little, multiple lives that keep coming back and doing, service to love's co-creation. Well, when I die, I'm going to be awake, and I'll be able to choose and not just come back as another mud puppet of reincarnation. Put it that way. Yep, Welsh rarebit. So, Bud, did you go take a look at the videos I put up of that big party? And as the party and kind of wore on, and I was libated and distracted. I wasn't a good cameraman, but I tried to capture at least the essence. And the rooms were dark, and I don't know what it was about my camera. The lens pointing forward, that's supposed to be better than the one looking at me now, kept fogging up. It was some kind of energetic thing. I couldn't quite. And again, like I was a little distracted. Excellent, right? Yep. That's exactly, you're the cowboy. You're riding on that horse. I'm just, Sensei Bob Cowboy. Cowboy Bob. Have any of you guys seen my, I did a series where I was Cowboy Bob. I was trying to be like Will Rogers. Well, buddy, I hope you enjoyed those videos. What I was most impressed by, everybody, was how passionate and alive everyone was living the life they wanted to do. They were doing their thing, right? They weren't worrying. And most of the people who were doing their thing were actually paying their bills by doing their thing. They didn't have to go get a job at Burger King to maybe kind of do it, or try to make a living on YouTube. No, most of those people weren't on YouTube. They were on Facebook because they were using it as a social media thing, but for their business, But they were like unbelievably bitching. So go to, a good thing, Mysticon, right? If you go to Gmail and that'll pop up, and then their web page for his show will be up there. Show all the people who did it, and if your kids are good navigators of that, data stream, they'll show you every person who was there, every person who promoted, every person who sold, every person. They had 80 movies. They had 80 movie makers, and they just kept showing movie after movie after movie after movie after movie after movie. And the person who made the movie or the crew, whoever was could get there, would tell a 5 minute little story. People could ask a few questions, and then after the movie, they would have a panel of three movie makers. The last one that happened and the two before it, and you could go and talk to them for an hour about their things. And they had 10 rooms of panels that went on for 18 hours every day, right? They had the big sale room that went on for 12 hours. They had loads of stuff in the hallways that went on for as long as you wanted to do it. And they had 4 floors above people who, and that's kind of what I videotaped. And like I said, I was a bit too distracted to get a costume of like a wolf creature that's a character, a avatar in a video game. And she writes code, video code. She taught herself how to write code once she got into single player video games when she was 8. By the time she was 12, she knew how to write code and she was making her own games. By the time she was 16, she was working for a Japanese company because she could over the internet. And now she was, pushing 30 something, 4 or 5 hours a day at home in my pajamas. And she didn't tell me what she made, but to say that she bought her own house, bought her own car, she's putting her kids through private school, tells me that she's doing all right, right? And the costume, so all the people who made costumes, there was a costume show there that they had a first prize, second prize, third prize. They had about 5 different categories, animals, they had 5, and each of those had a first prize, second prize, third prize. So they had a lot of money. And the movies, there were 4 different categories. They had documentaries, they had horror movies, they had comedies, they had, sci-fi. And this one woman made a movie, and then they had people who make movies from the shooting of the movie, 45 hours and 24 hours. And those were 2 other categories. And this one woman made a movie called The Blood of the Mummy, like MOMMY, mommy, right? Mommy, not mummy with a U. And this mother and a daughter, and they're having like your basic, 1980s argument of teenage girl and a mother and blah blah blah. And she's anyway, the she's getting married off, and her mother doesn't want that, and the girl doesn't want it, but the father's getting money from the rich guy to get because he's an old fart, and so the mother's making a big fuss. So the mother and the father just buries, because she's some kind of priestess. She gets buried alive in a tomb, right? She gets all wrapped up and embalmed, and while she's still alive, and put into the a tomb. And so the the girl is deciding she's going to poison the rich guy, right? And so the she makes has these poisoned sweets that she wants to give the guy. So he's just about to eat it, and then he stuffs it in her mouth, and she dies. And then he kind of has his way with her, because that's really what he's into, right? Anyway, so it cuts to today, and there's this girl, right? Looks just kind of like the princess. Anyway, long story short, the mummy, her mother, comes back because this girl's parents dig her up. And in Egypt, the mummy kills everyone there but this one guy who's been taking care of her the little girl, like the babysitter, and he's a priest, and he kind of knows what's going on. Anyway, long story short, it's hilarious. It's a gory horror movie, and it fit in another category. I forgot what it was, and it got all three because it was amazing. And oh yeah, the third one was it was made in 45 hours, meaning shot, and it was amazing, right? Amazing. And the sad thing was that John did not go to any of this. He was going, "Oh, there's nobody in Roanoke that I could talk to. Nobody I could talk about movies." Well, you know, at least 70% of the people at this, thing were from Roanoke. And not only they had they had a big room where for the whole frigging, Friday from noon until Monday, there were bands playing. And then they had, panels about production and writing and sales and getting yourself on tour. And it was like amazing. When we go look at those videos, you'll get a taste of it. Because I was more interested in dealing with people than doing a live chat. And it was like, it was in a hotel, and I'd walk into a room and the signal would drop and blah, blah, blah. Yes, I think it did. I told you, when I was doing those parties, I was very distracted because what really loved about this thing was there were about 1,000 people at this, right? And about maybe 600 were women, right? And this was beyond the Me Too. These women were in control. The lady who organized it, who administered it, and all her underlings were all women. There were very few guys running the show. It was all women, and the people who were most amazing were the women. There were no, but the guys were cool, but they were way outnumbered. There were like three women for every guy there, and so when I went to these parties, actually I met this one bunny girl down in the hallways downstairs, and she started playing with my beard. She kind of like got up close and just started, and she's like dressed like a bunny. I mean, like you can't tell who this is, and half the people who had costumes, you know, you talk to them, you could tell what gender they were. But anyway, first glance, not except the bunnies definitely showed off their wares, but skin tight kind of things with fur here and there, and the women were the aggressors. They were going after the guys. And half the guys there who were, half of the guys were nerds, meaning they never knew what to do with girls. And here they had three and four or five girls kind of coming on to them. It was amazing to watch this, right? And I'm just, I can be invisible. That's my skill as the anthropologist. But I was wearing the big red hat. You might have caught a glimpse of how I was dressed. And everyone loved the hat, my big red hat, my Christmas hat. And I had that yellow mask on it that was my altar. Like early on, this girl kind of came up and started playing with my beard, and she goes, "There's a bunch of my sisters and we're looking for a guy like you." I said, "What do you mean, guy like me?" "Well, someone who's mature and has a white beard." I said, "Oh, the beard is important." And so that was the group who got a hold of me at the Bunny Ranch, right? And yes, I was quite distracted because I didn't, I wasn't pushing, I don't have enough testosterone in me really to be that interested. But hey, when a bunch of bunnies get interested in me, yeah, well, I can, I'm not dead. So that's why it was so amazing. And we spent a good few hours together in their bunny suite, in their hut. And the fact that I wouldn't just, go nuts like they thought I would, they actually liked that, you're playing hard to get. I said, "No, no, I just want to get to know you. You girls are really, I really like you girls." And so they kind of really got into the fact that I guess they do this pretty regularly. I mean, they do their fun and dance in costumes. I met, when I was the Disco King, when that scene was starting, I helped build a nightclub in New York City called the Hellfire Club. And it was a remake of Ben Frank. Why the French came in on the revolution on our side is Franklin went over there as the second, guy from America. First was Jefferson. Everyone thought he was a jerk and boring. Because all he did was go into churches and draw pictures of stained glass windows. But Franklin went over there, went and met all the high mucky mucks, and he had some money. I mean, he was one of the guys who had cash because he had businesses. The other guys had real estate and slaves, but he had business, so he had some cash, and he started a club in Paris called the Hellfire Club, and women went through one door and men went through the other, and it was like a dressing room, and they took all of their clothes off and they got fancy masks, and everyone went out there stark raving naked and only with a mask, so you couldn't tell who they were. So King Louis loved it, and all of the rest. And that was called the Hellfire Club. So back in my disco days, I built a nightclub in New York called the Hellfire Club. I mean, I built it. I didn't. It wasn't mine. And they had a night where people would dress up as the animal night. Crazy animals. And that's what these girls were into. They had little doorways, and but they didn't never took off their mask or their outfit, right? And the fact that I wouldn't just go nuts was they kind of liked that, you know. And they had a lot of other distractions that I could take part with them. I didn't do any thing that would really, alter my state. But we had a great time, and I gave my card, and they contacted me, and some don't live too far away, so they kind of want to, get back, and that's the way it should. Women should be the aggressor, not the men, right? Now, men don't have to be wusses about it. They can just be themselves, and that's what I was, and that's what these girls liked. They were like, "This is kind of interesting, You are like reciprocating, but you're being yourself." I said, "Well, you gotta go watch my show and realize that's who I am." Yep, secret societies. Yep, the Bunny Society. And that's way better than the Illuminati, I have to say. Because those guys do kinkier shit than that, and it's not as half as much fun. I mean, it was just so much fun because everybody was just being themselves and innocent. I mean, I had so many amazing, when I went into the Egyptian, everyone's being Egyptian, and I start, I know a lot about all of that, and there were some people who were scholars, and they were going, whoa, and then there were other people who were, they knew their character, and I knew so, and it was really loads of fun, and the Gaelic room where it was like, waifs and crones, and I told the old crone story, and got 40 people to be quiet, and it was like, and I was so sad that John didn't take part of any. He went home early. He was like anxious, blah 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 blah. So you should go look at his channel and see why he was the way he was. It caught it quite well. And I have, I did shoot one of his things that was just like, I wanted to talk to people who wanted to talk to me, who was interesting, right? And the guys who were on his panel, I talked to them individually, before the panel and later on. And because they were on other panels. That's me. I smoke maybe, I don't know, 6, 7 times a year. I have no money. I have no contacts. The only time I smoke is when somebody who has some who knows that I like it, and so they come and turn me on, and they also know, it's I might have to go to a state where it's legal because it really does wonders for my eyes and my joints. It really. Anyway, And so I went into one of these places, and they had cookies. Smoking kind of burns my throat, but edibles. I love edibles, and that was quite fun. Well, in a hookah, I was in Amsterdam. The first time I ever smoked real good hash in a hookah was in Amsterdam. Yes, women should be the aggressors. Yes, they used to be. My question is, so there was this one Me Too crowd that I went in and listened to them, and and I said, "Listen, girls," and they nearly like their fangs came out. But I had a couple of the bunnies with me, and they were like they were after that evening, there were a couple. Oh, they would walk around with me and chatter and have fun, and tell people about, oh, you got to get this guy to reach upon. Anyway, so I went into this thing with these girls who were like, because they were wearing bodysuits, it was like they weren't wearing anything, right? And they were really well endowed and kept themselves fit and but they had jewels and fur and all kinds of really interesting things all over their bodysuit, but it didn't get in the way of showing you what was there. Anyway, so they're on either side of me, and I said, "Girls," and the women on this thing go, "Don't go." I said, "Listen, we're all girls." Yeah, and they go, "Well, huh?" And I gave them the story about everyone's born a woman, and they're huh? And then I was going on about men are only the jerks that their mothers let them be. Huh? And I just kept going down that path. And if the bunny girls weren't with me, because one of the bunny girls carried a baseball bat, that was part of her ensemble, and the other woman who was dressed up like a I don't even some mix between a lion, a wolf, and a bear. It's some you know video game character, avatar, and she had a humongous Japanese, a real, Hantu blade. I mean, real. I mean, she could do some damage if she wanted to, and she was there too. And when these girls started to get a little aggro with me, she was like, lifted her blade above her head, and so I had two bunnies on either side, and her costume. She wasn't that tall, but her costume was like 6'8", and it was just amazingly beautiful. I mean, she did everything by hand. I mean, the bunny girls too. The only thing they said they bought was the slinky suit, and then they decorated it. So it that's what I loved about the whole thing. Everybody was themselves, and they were passionate about what they were doing, and they were having a good time. And they, the only people who really I found a little, was the girls on the Me Too panel, and pretty much all the women in the audience, and there were a lot of women, were on the bunny's side, not on my, they were like saying, "Yeah, that guy makes kind of sense," but the bunny girls, they because they were so aggressive about everything they did, they said, "No, I am not. Me, forget that shit. My whole life, I have not waited for some man to say, 'Oh yeah, you too.' I went out and did what I wanted to do. My career, I made not. I didn't get it just because I'm slinky. I'm slinky because I want to be slinky. Anyway, that's what I loved about the whole thing is that if you look at the 7 or 10 videos I got up there, I spent most of the time listening to people's story. I'd throw down a few things to get the story going, but it was mostly wanting to get the feedback from just like you guys. I tell you stories only to get you. Oh, look at that! It was 1 hour and 1 second. Okay, so time to reframe. Let's go back and see what you guys have been saying. Boo boo boo. Hmm. More like it got fucked up because bunkies. Yep. Good for them. Riveting stuff. Hally ho, my comrades. Fish, you leaving us? First day without weed? Okay. Yep. 6 more days to go. Excellent fish. You do that, like you said, you'll appreciate it much better. I go months at a time without any. And every time I always say, wow, this is why it's good not to smoke every day. Because I get totally blasted by whoever is turning me on, and it sticks with me like days. Well, I didn't go into details. But you know what I'm talking about, buddy. Well, fish, you can have as much a dopamine experience you want by meditating than with other substances. And pretty much once I started to be involved with Grandfather David in Hopi ceremony, I'm pretty. Drugs had no effect on me anymore. Like I said, I got more, you know, out there, and I can't do psychotropics because nothing happens. You know. Well, women are the stronger part of our species. Of the gender. They give birth. They're smarter. I was part of a thing called the Harvard Color Study, and that was just a code name. What it really was studying, they kind of realized that women would make better fighter pilots than men because their plumbing is different, so they don't black out like guys do because all the blood goes to their dick. Women, it kind of stays in the rest of their body and stays enough up in the brain so they don't black out. Men are macho. Oh, I'm gonna kick your ass. But when the time comes to, oh my God, when you're in a jet, doing Mach 2, and you're heading towards a flight of other jets coming at you at Mach 2, and everyone's radar is lighting you up, and all kinds of signals are saying, oh, you're gonna get blown out of the sky. Men freak out. Women get pissed off and kick butt. And that was part of the Harvard Color Study. And we put them through every simulation, every test, and that was my little, why I was there, was to look at the data without gender bias or racial bias. So um, that was, and all the women in my life have been way stronger than the men in my life. You know, from my grandmother, my mother, Madame Ogle Kluver, Nancy Barber, a ton of women in my life. My original chorus from grammar school, Debbie Soul, Kim Romano, and Lisa Style, they were the smartest ones. They were so smart, they didn't act smart. They only liked me because I understood they were smart, and we had intelligent conversations in the third, fourth, fifth, and sixth, seventh, and eighth grade. You know why I got to learn Latin and Greek was Ken Romano knew it. Oh, I do that. I buy the CB whatever at the. I have a friend who has a vitamin store, and he's really a great guy. He gives me everything um, I need out of as soon as something kind of goes out of date, he kind of gives it to me. So Yes, I saw a few of them do that. They got a little, but again, this group was so just people who go off are people who aren't confident about themselves. Everybody, 99% of everybody at this event was super confident about themselves, who and what they were, what they wanted to do, and they had the experience. Every single one of them had been, excited about what they were doing from the time they were 9, just like me. I got excited, was turned on to being a real electrician at 9. I was blowing things up in my parents' house at 4, but my mom walked me down to, Grandpa Stoll's shop, said, "Do something with this boy. I can't take it." And he said, "Oh, good. There's somebody I can." Right. So pretty much 99.9% of everybody there had total confidence about who and what they were. So when they saw somebody who was as passionate as they were about what they were doing, I mean, all the filmmakers, they weren't competing with themselves. Their movies, they'd show their movies, and then the people would vote on it, but they weren't competing with the other filmmakers. And they were having great panels talking about telling stories, and then walking. The hallways were the best. That's where the majority of the people were. And that's what I really loved about it. There were 1,000 people who were really good at what they did, who loved what they did. What they did wasn't the average normal thing. In most places, people would say, "Well, boy, they're strange," especially the bunny girls, or all the costumiers, because they were that was where they were most comfortable, looking like an Egyptian, looking like a monster, looking like there were so many Batman there. It was like it was a Batman convention. There weren't too many Superman. A lot of Batman, a lot of monsters, a lot of gorillas, lots of gorillas with rocket launchers. You know, it was interesting. Okay, so we've had some good responses. How do you spell madam? Don't ask me, guys. Go. Read. Go to my novels at xratted.blogspot.com, and you will see what I'm talking about, spelling and grammar, right? I don't believe in it, right? So, and I remember the first stories I started writing and showing to, like writers groups, right? And I would knock stuff out just like I've knocked these things out. I got really into, and I would just write, writer writes. And I would every week come with a new story. And I remember I was in this one writing group. Half the people never bought anything. Or I said, "What books are you reading? Let's talk about the books you're reading." No, they're not reading any books. And every freaking week, I would have a new story. And there were 10 to 12 people would show up at this library for this. And there was only two who who didn't get. Why are you always bringing a new story? I said, "Because it's a writers group, and I want your feedback." And only two would read. I didn't want them. I said, "Here's a new one." So the one I gave you last week, what did you think? There was only two who would read it and give me. And what they did, because they were a little off by the other 10 set with me writing, they would type his writings, and I ran into one of these people, and they, "Oh, you got to come to our thing on Thursday out here, and here's the directions how to get there." I went there, and I became one of the clan, and about 3 or 4 months after I you know started hanging out there, I broke up with my girlfriend, and I need a place, and they said, "Oh, listen, we need somebody. You're a handy guy. You keep fixing stuff here. Why don't we let you live here? We pay you a little bit of money, and you can be the caretaker. And you cook really well. So set up, we always bring like store-bought stuff to the potluck. You just make dinner. We'll give you money for food. We'll give you money, for gas. We'll give you money. We'll just give you money." I said, "That sounds like a plan." So I was there for a good 6 months, maybe a little more, a little less. And I was there, I guess I kind of moved in January or February. And then I was there, February, March, April, May, June, July, and then I got involved in some other stuff. Superman gets a bad rap. Well, you have to realize Krypton and that S. You know what that S on his chest is? Mike, what is the S on Superman's chest? What does it stand for? Come on, Mike. What is the S on Superman's output stand for? You know what that sound is? That's the sound of Jeopardy. For Final Jeopardy. This is Final Jeopardy. What does the S on... Sorry, I have a habit of speaking out of turn. No, there is no turn here, fish. This is a no wrench universe. You can say whatever you want, anytime you want, however you want, because we all love each other. That's the only reason I keep doing this, is that the vibe is the vibe I'm looking for. We got 18 months to work on the other things, but that the most important is the intent, and that's what's here. Oh, so what did you say about what the S stands for?